Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the PHYSIOMICS PLC interim results presentation for the 6 months period ended 31st of December 2020. Throughout this presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and could be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type in your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. These will be available via Investor Meet Company dashboard, and you'll be notified once they're ready for review. I'd also like to remind you that this presentation is being recorded. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to Jim Millen, CEO of PHYSIOMICS PLC. Good morning.
Good morning, Paul. Thank you for the introduction and welcome to the PHYSIOMICS interim results presentation for the half year ended 31st of December 2020. I shall just turn my camera off while I present the slides and turn it back on again at the end. So a brief disclaimer. I'm going to cover just briefly some background about the company. There may be some new investors on board who are a little bit less familiar with what we do. And I will try and press through this presentation in around half an hour to leave plenty of time to answer some of the questions that have come in prior to this broadcast. So PHYSIOMICS, who are we? What are we? We're primarily a consultancy business operating on a fee-for-service basis with a particular specialism in cancer. So, well over 90% of our engagements are in the field of cancer. And we have particular knowledge of how to mathematically model drug effects on computers. How to get data that's needed in order to do that, and how to apply AI and machine learning techniques in order to maximize the insights that we can deliver to clients based on this work. The business is really split in two parts. So on the left-hand side here, you have our core consulting business, which is all of the project-based commercial business that drives the revenue of the company. And in the last 3 or 4 years, we've also taken a number of grants which have been focused more on developing our own proprietary tools in the field of personalized oncology. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But obviously that has led to some notable results, such as the award of an NIHR grant to fund a clinical study down in Portsmouth. That's the partner study. And just recently, before Christmas, the announcement of a collaboration with Tabula Rasa Healthcare, which is a major US company, which acquired an Australian company called DoseMeRx, which is also in the field of personalized oncology. Just to remind everyone that we have completed quite a large number of engagements, both commercial and otherwise, with a variety of companies from extremely small to extremely large. There are some examples in each of those categories here. I won't read them all out. As Paul mentioned, this presentation will be available after the meeting. I thought it would be just worth pointing out that the people who work with us tend to enjoy working with us, and that's why they come back again and again. So both of these clients, Cellcentric and the slightly larger company Bicycle Therapeutics, which is now public on NASDAQ since 2019, both of these have been responsible for significant amounts of repeat business with our organization. And those quotes, I believe, are also on the homepage of our website. But, it's nice when clients say positive things about us. That word of mouth generates further business for us also. Coming on to some of the highlights of the interim report. Most of this is taken from the interim reports that I'm sure you've all had a chance to peruse since it was released at the beginning of this month. So I won't probably hit on every single point here. Don't want to bore you. However, it's just worth noting that our total income for the half was up around 13% on the equivalent prior period. And that, as always, and I think we have a graphic to illustrate this just presently, our second half income for our financial year, is almost always significantly higher than our first half income. And I guess that's partly as a result of the fact that the first half of our financial year, contains Christmas, New Year, and the traditional holiday periods of July and August. We had a small operating loss still at the end of this period, but our cash position, remains very strong, and we actually had a small positive cash inflow during the period. So, we are not, we're certainly not hemorrhaging cash at this point, and we're break even on a cash basis for that period, and just slightly worse than break even on an operating profit basis, of course. In terms of selected operational highlights, as I mentioned already, Bicycle Therapeutics continues to be an extremely strong client. We've actually now completed, or at least signed, 8 projects, which span, I believe, actually all of this company's clinical assets. So, it's a very close and productive relationship. We also announced our first project with big pharma company Astellas, which we were very pleased about last July. We announced the approval of our partner study in Portsmouth, which I mentioned a few minutes ago, the partnership with Tabula Rasa Healthcare, further contracts with Merck, and then just after the period end, at the beginning of January, we announced the extension of a legacy deal that we had with Valorex, to include further indications for VAL-201, their main clinical asset, whose initial clinical results were released last September to some acclaim. Here's the graphic that I mentioned earlier. This is just taken directly from our published results. You can see, as I mentioned, that our second half is always bigger than our first half, and that the first half just announced is bigger than the comparable prior period. You can also see the clear trend towards profitability, although obviously we haven't quite got there yet. I thought it would just be worth saying a few words about marketing. I get a lot of questions on the pipeline, what it is, what it looks like, what shape it is. Obviously, there's only a limited amount that we could and should say in terms of the granularity of my answer to that question. But I thought it might be interesting just to touch on, some of the methodology that we use and how that has, become a lot more sophisticated over the last 12 months or so. So we do a lot of awareness raising exercises now, including fairly extensive use of Twitter and LinkedIn. In particular, we have a third-party agent who supports us with Twitter, helping us to source relevant announcements in the field of cancer and personalized medicine. We also took some time to upgrade our branding and our website a couple of years ago in order to improve the image of the company. We subscribe to a proprietary database of life science organizations, whereby we can run very targeted searches for prospective clients based on their pipeline. So looking for companies that have oncology products at certain stages of development that are of interest to us. We then feed those searches, the results of those searches, through to a marketing agency that we work with, which literally picks up the phone to individuals within these companies and tries to secure new business meetings for us. And they've been able to do that very effectively over the last 12-month period. I think there were some stats in our interims suggesting that we had 27 new business meetings with targeted companies over the course of, I believe it was calendar 2020. In addition to that, of course, we still attend conferences. They're mainly held digitally since the beginning of the COVID pandemic, but they're nevertheless, we still go to these conferences, we still present at them virtually, It's a good source of contacts, and it's an opportunity for us to get our thought capital out there into the marketplace. Pleasingly, we've also had an increase in the number of direct approaches made to us. So this is by referral from other clients, for example, or by people who simply pick up our name on the internet or on social media. And I think that's a nice reflection of the profile that we're beginning to generate. And then, we follow up all of these leads in a very structured way, using various customer relationship management systems in order to track contacts and in order to make sure that we follow up appropriately. So just wanted to say a few words about that to give you some confidence that there's a method here behind our marketing efforts. So a few more words on the core consulting business. We continue to have a strong relationship with our repeat clients, including Cellcentric Bicycle and our largest client, Merck KGaA. We had 11 follow-on agreements between all of our clients during calendar 2020, as well as I mentioned already, a significant new big pharma client in Astellas Pharma. Here's the stat that I mentioned on the previous slide. Investment in marketing has led to a substantial increase in the number of substantive new business meetings that we've held, and this was with 27 different companies, I hasten to add, not 27 meetings with a smaller number of companies. So these are 27 first meetings with companies over the course of calendar 2020. And not just any companies that we have designated as target clients, of course. One such meeting did lead to the agreement with Astellas in July of last year, and we have other proposals which are still outstanding from the meetings that we've had already that we hope will generate new business over the course of this half. I've mentioned already that we're getting a lot more approaches, a lot more passive approaches, not as a result of our direct outreach, but more because people hear about us or find out about us through their own research. It does obviously take time to develop clients, and I personally believe that the result of the significant marketing effort that we've made over the last 12 months will lead to further business going forwards, at least some of which I believe will come in this half. Switching now to talk a little bit about personalised medicine. The track record I think is impressive. So these are extremely competitive grants, and we've won 2 Innovate UK and 1 NIHR grant in a less than 5-year period, in fact. The NIHR grant is being targeted to pay for the partner study down in Portsmouth, which I'll come on to talk a little bit more about during the questions session, because there were a number of questions on that topic. Obviously, the agreement with Tabula Rasa Healthcare is a fantastic validation, in our opinion, of the work that we've done so far. And we're looking forward to progress that relationship. And again, we have some questions on that topic, which I'll address in the Q&A section. We are aiming to have the initial work done with Tabula Rasa during the first half of this year. And once that integration is complete, then obviously we will be soliciting some feedback from Tabula Rasa's clients. And then we will take the appropriate next steps thereafter. But that's the approximate timeline. It's not set in stone, but that is certainly what we're aiming for at this point in time. I guess the other thing to say about this relationship is that, of course, the whole regulatory environment around decision support software, such as that which our personalised medicine software represents, is complicated, and working together closely, hand in glove with a large established commercial organization in the space, which is Tabula Rasa, we think is going to be really, really helpful and perhaps even critical, especially in the US, where Tabula Rasa have got their main presence. Just to mention briefly then, the partner study, we have announced previously that this study has been delayed for obvious reasons because of COVID. However, I will note that the study was approved. It did receive HRA and Ethics Committee approval, and that was announced just before Christmas. So we are poised and ready to go. The folks down in Portsmouth are ready to trigger this study as soon as they're permitted by national and local regulations which govern these things. I don't have a specific date, and I don't want to guess at it, but obviously we're hoping to get this study started as early as possible during the course of this year. The study was designed to be run over an approximate 9-month period, with data coming towards the end of that period. And that data is intended to be used to further develop and refine the personalised medicine tool, which is the topic of the study. So my final slide, actually, before we move on to the questions, of which we have quite a few. Just in summary, really, the investment proposition, we still have a laser-like focus on the core business, targeting increased growth in our consulting services, which rely substantially on our proprietary virtual tumour technology platform. We think that's going to come as a result of continued investment in marketing and sales. And then also we are actively seeking to increase our business development capability by the hire of a full-time in-house employee. We have to date, other than myself, also used consultants and agencies, and we plan to continue to do that. But we now feel that the business could benefit from some additional dedicated capacity in this area. So that's the plan. Also, we're looking at how we can further leverage the relationship with Tabula Rasa Healthcare and in more generally expand our offering in the field of personalised medicine. Part of that will come through, excuse me, commercial relationships such as that with Tabula Rasa, and partly through things that we're doing under our own steam, such as the partner trial in the UK. And then thirdly, just to note that we do see other opportunities for the use of our modelling and simulation capabilities in still the healthcare setting, but in related spaces. And we're in the process of convening an advisory board, combination of internal and external experts, in order to further explore this. And we will make further announcements on this subject as and when we can. So I think that concludes the brief formal part of our presentation. And Paul, I believe that we had a number of questions submitted prior to the meeting. And if we address those first, then if we have time at the end, I will also try and address a number of questions that have been submitted over the course of my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jim, for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, do please continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of your screen. But while Jim takes a few moments to look at those questions that have been submitted already, I'd like to remind you the recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your Investor Meet Company dashboard. I'd also like to remind you that your feedback is important to the company, and immediately after the presentation has ended, you'll be redirected for the opportunity to provide feedback in order that the company can better understand your views and expectations. So, Jim, let's just touch on these questions that we've had come through. The first one reads as follows. Please, can you outline the long-term plans and ambitions for the company regarding the development of the personalised precision medicine arm of the business?
Thank you, Paul. So, yeah, as I mentioned during my presentation, we have two main foci in personalised medicine at the moment. One is our relationship with Tabula Rasa in the US, and the other one is the execution of the partner study down in Portsmouth. These are our two main initiatives in this space at the moment. However, we believe that there is substantial potential to expand the use of our tool beyond docetaxel in prostate cancer, which is its initial indication, to look at other drug and cancer types. And we believe that the existing tool with very little modification could certainly be used for other purposes than that which its initial use is targeted at. And again, as and when we make concrete decisions on expanding this, then we will announce those to the market.
That's great, thank you. Next one we have here is the TRHC outcome. Is that expected after June 21 or before that?
Yeah, so I think I covered this in my presentation, Paul, but all we can say at this point is that, you know, we're aiming to have the initial integration with the DoseMe RX platform completed, you know, sometime in the first half of this calendar year. So, you know, by the end of our financial year. And at that point, we will then hopefully go live and seek feedback from primarily US clinicians, since that's where that platform is mainly located. And then, you know, obviously take things from there. But the hope and expectation is that with positive feedback, that becomes then a commercial undertaking thereafter.
Thank you. The deal with Tabula and DoseMe RX could be potentially huge, especially getting into the North American market. Did that deal come via the direct marketing alluded to in the interims, or did it come via work done for other companies?
So that deal actually came directly as a result of senior management's direct outreach to DoseMe RX. And in fact, I think we even started talking to them prior to their acquisition by Tabula Rasa. So DoseMe RX, you may remember, was acquired by Tabula Rasa only at the beginning of 2019 for consideration of $10 million upfront and $10 million contingent. And we know that at that time, the DoseMe RX platform, according to their own press release, was already being used by over 1,000 clinicians in over 100 locations worldwide. And I think we'll provide those references in the written answers to the Q&A. But you know, we think it's a really interesting opportunity for us to get involved with something which is already well established. And to piggyback on that. And that did arise directly as a result of our proactive identification of that as an opportunity.
Thanks, Jim. DoseMe RX mainly used the Bayesian approach for dosing with antibiotics. Is this the first time they've used a cancer drug for use on their platform?
So the DoseMe RX platform does already have a number of cancer drugs on it, but we believe it's the first time that they have considered using their platform to actually predict the timing of adverse events, which is the key novel feature of the software which we're developing here. You know, I'm also looking at the comments that Tabula Rasa Healthcare made in their press release just before Christmas, and which I think we mirrored in our own press release. You know, their CSO noted that the collaboration aims to enable clinicians to more effectively predict the timing of serious adverse events. And they also said that they were excited to expand into oncology, and that's their own words.
Thank you. Next one we have here is, can you update us on the progression of the trial of the prostate dosing tool validation that is due to be going ahead in Portsmouth at PTTU? The trial was meant to start last year, but due to COVID, the trial was delayed. Is there a time frame for when this trial at PTTU is meant to start?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So again, I think I partially covered this, you know, during my presentation. The partner study has been approved, and that really is the hardest part. So a lot of work has to go into developing a protocol, getting patient feedback, and as I'm sure many of our investors appreciate, it's quite a time-consuming and complex task to get a clinical trial approved. That has been done. So as soon as the environment is suitable for clinical trials being restarted in the UK, then we are ready to go and should be able to start the trial at very short notice. I can't comment on exactly when that's going to be, but obviously, as I mentioned earlier, we would like it to be, and we are aiming for it to be as early as possible during this calendar year. The other thing I think it's just worth noting is that the funder of this trial, that the grant-giving body at the NIHR, is being very flexible as to obviously the rescheduling of this project. So we don't anticipate any issues with regards to the changing of the timelines of this project. It shouldn't have any impact, positive or negative, on the funding of the initiative or of the relationship that we have with NIHR.
Great, thank you. Do you anticipate publishing preliminary data from the NIHR Precision Oncology trial? And if so, how many months into the trial will this data be published?
Yeah, so the NIHR award was originally for a 12-month project starting in April last year. Obviously, although we've done the background work to get the study approved, the main part of that 12-month period was earmarked for the actual execution of the trial, including the collecting of clinical data, which we would then process subsequently. So all of that still has to happen, and we wouldn't anticipate making any announcements about the results of that trial until it's been completed. However, we absolutely intend to publicise the results of that trial if we possibly can, and we have also made that undertaking to Portsmouth and to the grant-giving body. So it's fully our intention to to make the most that we possibly can out of data coming out of that trial.
That's great, thank you. Since the Astellas deal has finished, has there been feedback from them regarding the work done for them?
Yeah, obviously we don't generally, comment in detail about client feedback, but I can confirm that the project was finished very successfully. I think both from our perspective and from Astellas's perspective. We remain in touch with Astellas, and as and when there are, further announcements to be made, then we will notify the market as appropriate.
Thank you, Jim. Could PHYSIOMICS technology be used in other fields of medicine apart from just oncology?
Yeah, and I can see that a similar question came in on the live Q&A over the course of the last 20 minutes in relation to the use of our technology in antivirals and possibly even in developing vaccines, I think was the specific question. So, primarily we're an oncology company. Most of our expertise is in the field of oncology. The science of quantitative pharmacology has broader application in other therapy areas, and individuals, both employees and consultants within the company, do have experience in other therapy areas. From time to time, we are asked to do small pieces of work in other therapy areas, and obviously, if there's money attached to that work, then we don't generally turn it down. But at this point in time, we envisage the majority of our work, will continue to be in the field of oncology. We are looking at related fields, and I think one of the questions that we'll probably put to our advisory board, though I mentioned we were convening earlier, would be, are there related areas that we could consider branching out into? And that could be cancer vaccines, to the question that came in from GB over the course of my discussion. It could be in the field of immunology, which is closely related to immuno-oncology, an area that we have a lot of experience in, and so on and so forth. So I think if we did expand beyond oncology, it would be incrementally, and it would be targeting related areas first, and that's something that we are actively thinking about, and as and when that we've made a definitive decision, we'll make a further announcement to the market on that.
Thank you, Jim. In the interims, there's another small loss. Does the board see/hope for break even or maybe a small profit in the next set of results?
Yeah, so obviously I'm not going to make any forward-looking statements at this point, but I'll just make the general point that we are focused on delivering long-term value to shareholders, and clearly our ultimate goal is to become a sustainably profitable company, of course, but we're not going to shoot ourselves in the feet in order to do that. So if we see an interesting investment opportunity, be that in personalized medicine, be that in a value sharing deal like the one that we announced with Valerix in January, we're not going to sacrifice that in order to, get a few extra tens of thousands of pounds of profit to get us over some sort of line. So, our focus is on generating, medium and long-term value for shareholders, and we will certainly continue, and that will certainly continue to be the case going forwards.
Thank you. The use of AI is increasing within the industry. What makes your use of AI different to others in the same field?
Yeah, and so AI is a term which is thrown around very freely by people and used very loosely. I would actually say that, some of the machine learning techniques that are at the core of what PHYSIOMICS does are techniques that we have been using for over a decade, long before AI became a trendy term. So, why is ours different? What I would say is that it's really a combination of the use of the technology and the experience of the people in developing cancer drugs, which makes us unique. So there's a lot of companies out there that can use clever software to crunch numbers, but I don't believe that those companies can give clients the insight that we can into how to interpret that, the outputs of that exercise, and translate that into concrete decisions about how they should move their drug pipelines forwards.
Thank you. I think you've touched on this slightly, but you've mentioned 27 new company meetings undertaken in 2020. Can you give some granularity on the nature of that potential pipeline and how many of those are likely to convert based on the historical pipeline conversion ratio?
Yeah, so I think I did pretty much cover this, Paul, in my presentation earlier. And we're not going to provide regular granular updates on our pipeline, but I do get a lot of questions about it. When I first joined the company, 4 or more years ago, clearly our pipeline was much slimmer than it is today. I and my colleagues have worked really hard to build it up to where it is today. And I guess we feel sufficiently confident in where it's at now and where we see it going that I wanted, I think for the first time, to give you some more insight into how it's been generated and what it's doing for us. And I will just repeat that 27 new meetings, some people may think that's a lot, some people may think that's not a lot, but for us that's really material. And these are meetings with companies who we honestly believe we could help, who have assets at the right stage of development for us to be able to provide meaningful input to, and where we have managed to secure meetings with senior people from their organization. So, as I say, a number of those meetings have led to us submitting proposals. At least one, the Estelas meeting, led to a substantial project. Other proposals are outstanding, and we hope and expect that there'll be further new business generated as a result of the work that we've done in the sales and marketing field.
Thanks. The next question relates to the Valerix deal. The deal with Valerix seems very significant as a possible template for future risk-sharing contracts in the biotech space. It also acts maybe as a marketing tool, i.e. we're so confident in our ability to help our clients, we're prepared to take more of our compensation and contingent risk upside. Of the 27 requested proposals, could you give some idea of what percentage of them include upside risk sharing components, or were they all fee for service?
Yes, I think I've said this on previous occasions. The majority of the discussions that we have with clients are about fee for service arrangements. And obviously, we will continue to look at these on a case-by-case basis. And from time to time, as with Valerix, we will see that there's an opportunity for a significant upside for PHYSIOMICS, but at the cost of a appropriate amount of effort on our part. We are a small company, we have to pay our bills, so we're going to continue to need the majority of our engagements to be paying cash, but we will continue to look for upside opportunities such as Valerix on an opportunistic basis. So that would be my response to that question. I think that there were some other questions in the Q&A feed on the Valerix project. I can't really say anything more about it at the moment. Clearly, we only just started again with Valerix at the beginning of this year. but we will make further announcements as soon as we're able, and obviously with the agreement of Valorex.
Thank you, Jim. The last few we've got coming through here is, could you please elaborate on which are the new areas new assets are being built? This is in reference to the interim report. In addition to the areas noted above, the company is actively considering how it could use its extensive capabilities in modelling, simulation, data analysis and AI techniques to develop further innovative assets in collaboration with other partners.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So again, I'm going to be a little bit limited in what I can say at the moment. What I can say is that we have a number of fairly concrete ideas about how we could evolve our business from a pure consulting model to a model where we have some sort of revenue generating asset. One obvious example of that is what we've done in the personalised medicine space. We are looking at a software asset there, one that could potentially lead to a revenue stream. But we have a number of other concrete ideas that we're in active discussion with other partners. Clearly, they're at an earlier stage than the personalised medicine initiative. And one of the reasons, as I mentioned earlier, for convening an advisory board is to make a selection from amongst these ideas and prioritize them in order that we can focus on actually moving them forwards to the stage where they'd be something that we could announce to you guys, which clearly we want to do as soon as we can. I can't really say more than that at this point in time, other than just to reiterate that we would like to evolve our business to one which is purely fee-for-service, consulting-based, to one which has more of an asset-based component.
Thank you. Just coming to the penultimate one we've got here. You've been very successful in the past gaining Innovate UK and NIHR grants. Will you be applying with partners for a Cancer Grand Challenge Research Award? The Cancer Grand Challenge Awards are worth circa $25 million. It would seem to me as a layman that simply announcing one's company was planning to apply for such a high-profile award could act as a marketing tool to both investors and potential partners.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I guess because there's such a large dollar amount associated with that particular award, it does attract some attention. On that specific award, I'll just observe that primarily that award is designed for clinical investigators, so academics or clinicians working in a hospital or an academic environment. A lot of the consortia that are put together do include private companies, but it's not the private companies that lead those awards. Also, the focus in terms of the subject matter of those awards tends to be early research rather than drug development, which is more our focus. So that specific award may not be so suitable for us in particular. However, we do continue to closely monitor the grant environment. We've had significant success, really significant success, I would say, in winning grants in the form of awards from Innovate UK and NIHR over the last 4 or 5 years. Far higher than average success rate. If you look at the numbers there, you can look in the public domain and see that perhaps, I don't know, 10%, 15% of applicants for awards such as Innovate UK get through. I think we may have applied for something like 4 in the time that I've been around and been awarded 2. So that's certainly beating the statistical odds as far as I'm concerned. So we will continue to monitor this environment closely. Obviously, we won't announce every time we apply for an award, but we'll certainly tell you every time we win one, and hope to be able to make further announcements in that space as and when it's appropriate.
Thank you, Jim. Next one we have here is a progressive company. I'm surprised we've not seen any announcements from PHYSIOMICS in recent times with regard to staff recruitment. Is that the company is able to grow its business sustainably with the existing core personnel, or does it prefer to make use of contracted labour?
Yes, so I did mention in my last slide of my presentation that we are planning to expand our sales and marketing team in the form of a new business development executive. In terms of the core scientific project team, I think the flexible model that we have, which combines full-time employees with consultants whose time we can draw on as required works really well for us. It means that we don't, as a small company, obviously we have some some fluctuation in the amount of work that we're doing from month to month and year to year. And rather than having people sit around doing nothing during fallow periods, and indeed to avoid them being critically overburdened during busy periods, of which we've had a lot over the last 12 months, being able to draw on flexible resource is a really nice way to address that, both of those problems. And so I think we will continue to do that, but we want to build out the sales and marketing side of our business in particular at the moment. And so I'm pleased to say that we're very actively looking for an additional team member in that space. I think that's the end of the pre-submitted questions. And I think, to be honest, Paul, I've probably touched on most of the questions that I'm able to answer that were submitted over the course of the meeting. So that might be a good time to draw things to a close.
Absolutely. And if there are any further questions submitted from investors, of course, Jim can review those post-event. Jim, just perhaps before we redirect investors to give you some feedback, just a couple of final closing words, if I may, from you before we do so.
Just to reiterate, I guess, the investment proposition, which is on this last slide. I don't know if you still see it, but we still see potential for growth in our core business. But we want to leverage our capabilities in modeling and simulation in other ways as well, looking at asset-based plays such as the personalised medicine initiative, most notably through the collaboration with Tabula Rasa Healthcare, but also in other ways which we are in internal discussions about. And as and when we reach a conclusion as to direction of travel there, then we will seek to make further announcements.
That's fantastic. Jim, thank you very much for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback. If you've accessed this meeting from our website, the feedback page will appear in front of you. If you've accessed the meeting via the link sent to you in the email, you're simply asked to log back in. It just takes a few minutes to submit your feedback and be greatly appreciated by the company. On behalf of PHYSIOMICS PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's session. That concludes today's event. Thank you very much and good morning. Thank you again, Jim.